Alright, so I wanted to do a quick refresher of getting stuff set up in InDesign with your text and artwork for the poem zine project. So I'm going to open up InDesign here and we're going to do new file. And we don't really want to think about picas, we want to think about inches, right? So set that unit to inches. Now your individual pages are going to be 5 inches wide. Wow, I don't know why that reset to inches. Let's say 5 inches wide by 7 inches tall. We definitely do want this facing pages checked. That's going to put 2 pages together to make a 2-page spread. So we want that on. We can start with 8 pages here. You can do 8 or 12, it's up to you. So we've got 5 by 7 for the individual page, single page size, 8 pages total. That includes the front and the back cover page. Column 1, that's fine. Margins, that's just going to be a little guide for you to have some nice just negative space margin around the sides, the edges of the pages. So maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe like a little over 1/2 an inch, something like that. If you hit this link button, that lets it just keep them all consistent as you increase or decrease. So maybe start with something like this, 0.625. Bleed, we definitely need bleed. It's going to be really important. So we want to do a 1/4 inch for this project. For this document, we want to do a 1/4 inch bleed all the way around. So top, bottom, inside, outside, they should all say a 1/4 inch. Slug, don't worry about it. Not important here. So I'm going to go ahead and call it something. So do this and then something like that, version 01, right? And we should be good to go. Double check everything. Yes, good. Create. Alright, so now we've got the cover, right? But we can also see here in the pages panel, it's going to be really important. You can see all the pages laid out, just little thumbnails of them. What's important is that I recommend that you're using the Essentials Classic workspace. So if yours is something else, like Essentials, make sure you click up here in the workspace and you switch that to Essentials Classic. That's going to give you, I think, the best view of all the options and the tool properties up here and things like that. So you can expand this window out. One other quick little thing. This works the same in Photoshop with the layers as well. If you click here in this little menu in the Pages panel, click here, you go down to the very bottom, and it might look a little different on PC. I'm using my Mac at home right now. But if you hit Panel Options, you can tell the thumbnails of the pages here, you can tell them to be bigger, right? So large, extra large, jumbo, it's kind of ridiculous, but we could try extra large, and this looks fine. Just hit OK. See, and how that makes the page thumbnails a lot bigger, just easier to see things. So if you want to do that, go for it. It makes your life easier. So we can zoom in with the zoom tool. Holding Alt will let you zoom out. Holding the space bar lets you scroll or scrub through all the pages. So holding the space bar and then clicking and dragging. So alright, great. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to open up one of the poems. Okay, so I've got our class drive folder open, project 02, poem zines, and we're going to go to the senior poems here. This is where all of them are hanging out in this folder. So we're going to find one. Let's open this up. That's a lot of text. That is a lot. So let's just see what happens. I'm going to select all of this text. Okay, that's a lot. All right. So Control C to copy. Come over here. Now, I'm not going to start the text on the cover, right? That's the cover. So right now, I know that that's a good bit of text to squeeze into 3 spreads, right? We've got 6 pages here in the interior. So that's 3 2-page spreads. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my text tool over here. You can also hit T to get to the text tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one little text box. It doesn't matter how big it is or how small, but just keep it kind of smallish, all right? And Control V to paste the text in, all right? Now I'm going to hit Escape so I can like go back to it without actually editing the text, all right? Now this little guy, this little red plus sign at the bottom right side of the text box, that's what we call the Outport. So what we need to do to take this text and continue it across these pages, but have it all connected and threaded together, we need to get the Move tool or the Direct Selection tool. So up here, just like in Photoshop, now you click that little plus sign, the Outport button, click it. It gives you a preview of the text that will continue, that we can't see right now. So once we click that, I'm going to click and drag another small text box here, okay? And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to click that plus sign, the Outport, click, scroll down here, little text box, okay, click again, make another text box. Again, right now I'm not worried at all about the placement or the size or positioning or anything like that. I'm just getting the text on the page. So click that Outport button again here, go here, click it one last time, and I don't know, yeah, again, it's a lot of text. So here's what we're gonna do. Because we filled, I'm gonna zoom out here, because we've already filled these 6 pages with text, that's kind of like all the space we have if we're deciding on doing 8 pages total, right? So what I want to do is try to get the pacing a little bit more even. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. When I say pacing, I mean like how much text is going on each page and trying to keep that consistent across the pages, right? So for now, I'm actually I'm going to make a decision that I want to do a little bit smaller font size. So what you need to do is just, you can double click, right? Just to make sure you're in the text. So once you're in the text, hold Control and then hit A, Control A, and see what that does. It selects all the text. Even though it's spread out across all those pages, it selects everything because we click that little Outport button, that little red plus sign. So that connects all of the text boxes. So that idea is basically called threading the text, right? The text boxes are threaded together. They're all connected, even across all these different spreads. So Control A selects all the text, you can see, boom, it's all of it. Now, whatever you change in the text is going to change across everything, right? So I'm going to bump it down to like 10-point font. I don't like Minion Pro. I think I want to do something a little more mellow and like a sans serif font. So I might do something like Acumen Variable Concept. Acumen is something you can get in Adobe. And I'm going to go with just like probably regular, maybe medium. Let's just try regular. All right. So that updated all of the text, right? Now, what I want to do is see, can I get these text boxes all basically the same size? So I'm going to try to line this up, and the guide will kind of snap to keep it in the same size, same position as the other one. So let's see here. We've got this. Actually, I want to try something here. Yeah, okay, so let's say I want to try to match this over here. The only way that I know how to do it at the moment off the top of my head is you can grab one of these text boxes. Actually, I might decide I want to do like a little bit longer, something like that. Okay, make that consistent. All right, now I'm gonna, on this text box, I'm gonna do Control C to copy that, go down here, paste it. So now I can see, actually what I'm gonna do is, it's different. I'm gonna right click because I wanna paste this text box from the previous page in place. So right click, paste in place. So now that position there is the same exact position as it is on this page. Okay. So now what I can do is say, well, I don't need that text box there. I'm just going to kind of move it over to the side. I can nudge it with my arrows. If you hold shift and nudge with your arrows on the keyboard, it makes it move a little quicker. So now what I can do is I can reposition this one to match that, right? Something like that. Cool. This I'm going to bring up here, get that in place, make it match. Okay. Interesting. All right, so here's what we're dealing with now. We've got all this text, but it stops here. So what I want you to do is basically explore options, right? Can you, 1, 2, 3, 4, can we take this text and break it up so that it's a little bit more even across the pages? So for now I'm going to move these over here. I'm going to take this one and say, hey, I might want you to go here. Something like that. Let's see, for now, I might do that just to keep things consistent. Line it up on the top. All right, so this is the first, this is the second, this was the third, so that needs to go like this. Here. Okay, so now that's interesting. Now I've been able to basically capture all of the text by just doing a text box here on the left, then here on the right, then here on the left. So already I've created kind of a rhythm. Right? If you zoom out, you can see text, text, text. And each page has text on one side and then empty space on the other. So there's a nice rhythm there already that I'm not upset about. Right? Having some structure, having some consistency in the rhythm or the pacing is nice. Right? It's like just generally a good idea with laying text out, is having kind of like a predictable rhythm. Right? So the other issue that I'm seeing now is that, let me look at this actual text. Let me compare this. Some of the spacing, okay. Yeah, the spacing looks, where's the part about the wrist? Tornado of her wrist. I'm seeing this text here. Where is that? If I want to find text in a document on a Google Doc, I can do Control F and it'll let me find text, right? So boom, there is the wrist right there. So Control F lets you bring up a little search bar to search for anything within the text. So, all right, let me think. Her wrist until it dies down to dust. Okay. So what I'm realizing now is that some of these lines in the way the poem is originally written in that Google Doc, the lines are actually longer. In other words, it's almost more like that, right? The text actually goes really long, like longer than the width of the page. So there's a couple options. We can do select all and bump that text down until it kind of fits within those margins. Now that's pretty small. It's not the end of the world, but 8-point font. Oops. If I click the text, select all, I can see, I've set it at 8 points, and that gets this text staying within these margins that we set, right? So here, yeah, all the text is there. Ooh, look at that. So now that we've decreased the size, we've actually got more space to work with. Okay. So what we can do is say, what if I decrease this? All right, see, when I decrease that, because these text boxes are threaded together, you can change how much you're seeing on one page, and it'll continue and keep the text continuing without any kind of like, accidentally deleting or not showing some of the text. So let's try that. Now that we've done that, we see some more text here. What if I kind of go like this, right? Something like that. So now they're feeling a little bit more consistent, like this much, this much, this much. It's a little bit more even, right? It's a little more consistent amount of text across those spreads. So I'm not upset about that. I might bump this up, okay? Again, right now, I'm not worried about the exact positioning, sizing. I'm just really trying to get the text laid out across the whole document. And like right now I do, okay? So, we could make a decision that we want to go past this. We want to give ourselves the option of going past this margin just a little bit. So I'm looking at the longest line here, which is at the top, like a bouquet on the table right here. So I could make a decision, select all that text and say, maybe I can bump this up to like 8.5. The font size 8.5. Try that. Expand this out. So now we can see the text here. It has a nice little margin here on the top left. This is getting a little closer to the edge, but it's not terrible, right? If the table text was like way over here close to the edge, I'd say that's a problem. That might get cut off when it comes time to actually print it and trim it. But that space right there, that looks like it's a little less than ½ an inch or so. It's not terrible. So now that we've got that text laid out, we can always save different versions of this. So, file, save a copy, call it version 2, right? And then create different versions that we can experiment with different layouts and playing around with different fonts, different sizes, maybe breaking up the text in ways that are more interesting than just like, left, right, left. But for now, this is a good start, right? It's a good start. We've at least got the things laid out. So what I might do is say, I want to give some more breathing room between the lines of the text. So the line height, the other word for that is the leading. So I'm going to select all the text, and in the properties panel, if you can't see that, you just need to go to Window, hit Properties, right? So in the Properties panel, you will be able to like make all of these changes to the actual font and how the text is laid out. So here, right here, is the leading. Okay, that is the space between the lines, so the vertical spacing. So if you bump that up, you can see you get more space. Because there's so many words, and right now they're a pretty small font size, having more spacing is just makes it easier on the eyes. It makes it more legible. It's less it's less difficult to read, right? It's less difficult to look at when you give it a little bit more breathing room. So selecting all that. So right now, font size is 8.5, right? But the leading, this vertical spacing between the lines is 14 points. And I'm not upset about that, right? It definitely feels easier to read compared to what it was before. It was like this, right? Like real tight. That's like kind of tough on the eyes, right? It's kind of tough on your brain. So it definitely feels better to bump that up to something like 14. So things are just feels easier to read. Oops. All right, so then we can look at the whole layout and say, can I Interesting. Okay. I'm looking for these breaks, right? These big line breaks between the stanzas. So you've got 4 lines here, looks like 5 lines here, more here. So I'm looking for a break and saying, what if we break it there? Okay. And then we bring this down, and we could break it there. Zoom in. We can break it here, or we could break it here. All right. For now, let's think about it. So if we do it that way, see how there's more text here, so we should expand that out. Let's try that. Okay, now that is the whole poem. All right. Yes, yes, yes. Frost on kitchen windows. Yeah, that's the last. Okay. So we can zoom out and go, okay, that's a lot of text, that's a lot. This is a little bit less, but it's the end. So not bad as far as just general pacing, or like getting a roughly consistent amount of text on these pages. Again, this poem is a little bit maybe more of a challenge than some, just because of the word count. There's so many words and some of the lines are really long. So I'm glad that I looked at this one as kind of a starting point for this demo, because I just want to walk you through like how to think about getting all the text there. And I want to line it up on the top margin there. That works out nicely. See how the top of the text, if I want to make it consistent, I can bump it up to that pink margin line right there, like that. All right, so again, as a starting point, I'm going to hit save and say, yep, save it here. You don't want to call it untitled, right? You want to call it something. So put the file naming conventions in your file name. I'm a little upset about this right here, how that line is going really low. It's going below the margin. Not crazy about that, but could always maybe think about selecting all the text and saying the leading. What if I do it instead of 14, I do like 13 and a half. Okay, so decrease that line height just a little bit. Now it's fitting within that margin, so that works out pretty good. Now we gotta bump this down, so let's get that there. Bring this back up. Now bump this down. Again, I can use the arrows on my keyboard to nudge. All right, so right now, this is a good starting point because we have the text down. Right, we have all of the poem text on these 3 spreads. One page on each spread has text, left, right, left. If you hit, I think I've already mentioned this, but if you hit W on the keyboard, you just tap W, it will switch between like a normal screen mode where you can see all the guides and the margins and the bleed and all that, to just a regular page view that will look like how it's printed and held in your hand. So, all right, so not terribly upset about the overall layout right now. So now at this point, we would save it. And if you wanted to, you can always think like, maybe I want to get a little bit more text, on this page. Switch back to this view, line it up. Maybe I want to do something like that, right? Something like that. And then you have the space here to do some cool art thing, right? But then we got an empty page here, and we have that text that we need to continue, because we kind of cut off some of it. We moved it here, so you could take this one, bring it up here, maybe, and let's see, hit that plus sign, bring it over here, hit the plus sign, bring it over here. Okay. So you might look at this and think, well, I don't want all that text on that spread, right? Okay, well then you have the freedom to adjust things. You can say, I want less here, maybe more here. You know, you still have plenty of space here, right? So you could make adjustments until you feel good about the general layout. Right? Do you want to do something like this, where you have like big text on the left, a small amount on the bottom right, then here you say I want a small amount on the bottom left, and then maybe a bigger chunk over on this side, right? Then the last spread then would have just a couple lines, right? And maybe that's something that you might want to do intentionally. Maybe you want that last spread to just have a couple lines, right? The final lines of the poem. Maybe we bring this up. Let me look at this. I think this stanza might be kind of connected. No, it looks like there's a break there between this line and this line. So go like that. Bring this up here. Or here. Right. The idea is you're just getting the stuff laid out generally in a way that kind of feels okay and feels balanced, like in a rhythm across the pages. You can always adjust things. You know, maybe you decide you want to take the font size and like bump it down or bump it up, or select all the text and, you know, adjust that tracking, or sorry, the leading, the spacing between the lines. You can always, you know, try a different font and see what you think. But if you're going to make big changes, I recommend that you save a copy, save a different version, and then try something different with that. So a different font or different sizing, different positioning. If you're going to make a big change, I would save alternate versions for sure, so that you can have, you know, you will have created all these different options, right? Diverging in the beginning. Diverging is where you're creating choices for yourself. You're creating options or possibilities. And then later on, after you've done that for a little bit, then you can start to make choices and decide on what you think is going to work best. So yeah, whenever you put something down, it's never going to be amazing and perfect the first time, right? It's usually going to look really rough and maybe kind of suck the first time, and that's totally normal and to be expected. So creating different versions is going to help you, you know, just be a little bit more experimental and more playful with, you know, trying things. So yeah, so once you have all of this text laid out, let's just say we're gonna like stick with this for now, this general arrangement. At this point, we can save it, and then if you want to start sketching ideas on top of these spreads with this text laid out where it is, pretty simple. You can export all of these spreads as images, like JPEG images, to sketch on top of in Photoshop or Procreate or Fresco. So in order to export all these pages of spreads, you go File, and then Export. And you don't want to export it as a PDF because that's a document file. I'm going to click that, Format. Again, it's going to look a little different on a PC. Probably says something like File Type. And you want to go with JPEG, right? So use InDesign document name as output file name, that's fine. Yep. Hit save. Now it's going to ask you, hey, do you want to do just a couple of these pages, or do you want to do all of them? Do you want to do individual pages or spreads? So for now, let's just do all, and definitely want spreads so we can see the 2-page spread layout, right? Resolution for sure needs to be 300. It should not be 72. We want 300. And we also want to use the document bleed settings, okay? We definitely want this one checked. So once those are all good, export. Now, these JPEG images are exported to the same folder that the actual InDesign file was in, okay? So now these, I can't edit the text on these, right? But what I can do is grab all these, bring them into Photoshop. Right, here's looks like that's the cover. That's maybe the back cover. But I've got the page spreads as JPEGs, and if I want, I can create, there we go. I can create a new layer, and I can start sketching ideas, on top of those spreads, right, on a new layer, right? So you can concept your ideas, your sketches this way. You export those spreads from InDesign here as JPEG images, then open them up in Photoshop or Procreate, whatever you want to use. You could print out the page spreads, right, if you wanted to. You could print them out and then actually sketch on paper if that feels easy and more natural. But again, keep in mind you're actually thinking about the spreads as a complete composition, right? This right here, you can bring in a guide, snap that in the middle, right? So that's showing you where the center is, the gutter. You can figure out what you want to do, with your art, whatever. I'm drawing with a mouse, which is my favorite thing to do. You can play around now with the idea of, what if I want a page where everything is actually really dark? It's like, okay, well, what if you invert that page and make it like a dark spread, right? And you have white text, right? Let's say you decided that you want to use like an orange color for your the color in your project, so you could fill a whole layer with orange, and if you still want to see that text, you can set that to screen, right? So now we've got, visually a lot more interesting page than just, black words on a white page. So, you could try, what if I make the text in color, right? What if I have the text in color, but then my art is, a lot of like really nice black and gray and maybe some bits of orange. So again, this part in the process is just very experimental. It's very playful. You shouldn't get caught up in any kind of details or like really, really specific stuff. It's really just kind of imagining what can you do in these spaces on these page layouts to create a nice composition where the text is still readable, you're not distracting from the text. Right, you'll notice here, even with my quick little mouse doodles, there's plenty of negative space around that text, right? There's plenty of negative space here around that text. So we want to keep those things in mind. So yeah, as you work on these, just save your sketches and concepts as you go. The approach should be that you try to get all of these pages, all of these spreads at like, let's say a level of like 20% done, right? 15, 20, 25% done, all of them, right? All of these spreads. When you feel good about that, okay, great. If you want to make some decisions to like improve some things in that kind of 20% level, Awesome. Once you do that, then start taking all those spreads, all of them, to like, let's say a 40, 45, 50% level finished, right? Like kind of a rough sketch. The idea is that you don't spend like hours on one spread and then you forget about the other ones, and then you're rushing and you're kind of crunching to get the other pages, the other spreads done. You want to try to like pace yourself so that you do all the spreads at like just a little bit, beyond just like super rough, right? Like 20% level done. Then everything at like 40%. Then everything at like 60, 75%. Then in the end, you're just kind of doing the final polishing. So that's what I recommend as far as your process, workflow, approach, and how you tackle these spreads.